Someone is dying right in front of you. Heart attack. You're clutching their chest, can't breathe, face turning pale. You're a cardiologist, a literal heart specialist. You've spent 13 years in medical training. You've saved hundreds of lives. You call 911. This is Dr. Harris. I'm a cardiologist. I have a patient in cardiac arrest. We need an ambulance immediately, the dispatcher interrupts. Are you qualified to make that assessment, ma'am? What? Your patient is dying? Every second counts. And the dispatcher is questioning whether you, a board-certified heart specialist, are qualified to diagnose a heart attack? Why? Because you're a black woman. This happened in 2024 in Chicago. It almost cost someone their life. If you've ever had your expertise questioned because of how you look, this story is for you. If you've never thought about how bias in healthcare can kill people, this story will change that. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Truly Black and White, and prepare yourself for one of the most shocking stories about bias in medicine and what happened when a doctor refused to let assumptions cost someone their life. This is about life and death. Literally, let's begin. Before we get to what happened in that cafe, you need to understand who Dr. Tamara Harris is. Because when you know her story, when you understand what she sacrificed to become a doctor, what happened to her becomes even more outrageous. Tamara Harris was 8 years old when she decided to become a doctor. It happened on a Tuesday
afternoon
when her grandfather collapsed in their kitchen. One moment he was laughing, telling stories about his childhood in Mississippi. The next moment he was on the floor, clutching his chest, his face twisted in pain. Heart attack. Tamara watched paramedics rush into their house. She watched them work on her grandfather with professional efficiency. She watched them save his life. And something clicked in her 8-year-old brain. I want to do that. I want to save people. But becoming a doctor when you're a black girl from the south side of Chicago isn't easy. The statistics are brutal. Only 5% of physicians in the United States are black. Only 2 to 3% of physicians are black women. That's it. In a country of 330 million people, black women, make up less than 3% of doctors. Tamara knew the odds, but she was determined. She excelled in school, straight A's through elementary, middle school, and high school. Science clubs, volunteer work at local hospitals, advanced placement classes in biology, chemistry, physics. When she told her high school guidance counselor she wanted to be a doctor, the counselor smiled encouragingly, but then added, "You know, Tamara, medical school is very competitive. You thought about nursing? Or maybe pharmacy? Those are great careers too." Translation, maybe aim a little lower. But Tamara didn't aim lower. She aimed for the top. She applied to Northwestern University for undergraduate studies. Got in. Full scholarship. Then Northwestern's medical school, one of the top medical schools in America, got in with financial aid that made it possible. Medical school was brutal. For years of the most intense studying you can imagine. Organic chemistry, anatomy, pharmacology, pathology, learning about every system in the human body, learning how to diagnose diseases, learning how to save lives, long hours, little sleep, constant testing. The pressure was immense, and for Tamara, there was an extra layer of difficulty. She was one of very few black students in her class. In some classes, she was the only one, and the microaggressions started immediately. Patients at teaching hospitals would sometimes request a different student. When Tamara would introduce herself, they'd ask, "Is there someone else who could see me?" Professors would call on her less often. Even when her hand was raised, they'd call on white students instead. Study groups formed without her. Nobody said it was about race. But somehow, the informal study groups were always all white, and Tamara was left out. Teaching assistants questioned her understanding. "You sure you understand this concept, Tamara? Maybe you should consider tutoring?" She wasn't struggling. She was getting A's. But because she was black, people assumed she was barely keeping up, but Tamara kept going. She graduated near the top of her class. Then came residency, 3 years of hands-on medical training, working in hospitals, seeing patients, learning. From experienced doctors, Tamara chose cardiology because of her grandfather. She wanted to be the kind of doctor who saved people from heart attacks. After residency came a fellowship to more years of specialized training in interventional cardiology. That's the kind of cardiologist who doesn't forms procedures to fix them. Stents, angioplasties, catheterizations, life-saving interventions. Let's add it up. 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, 2 years of fellowship, 13 years of training after high school, 13 years of proving herself, 13 years of being the best. By March 2024, Dr. Tamara Harris had been practicing cardiology for 12 years. She was an attending physician at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, one of the top hospitals in Chicago. She'd saved hundreds of lives. She'd published research papers in medical journals. She'd taught medical students. She'd earned every credential, every title, every bit of respect that should come with being a doctor. And yet she still faced moments where her expertise was questioned. Patients asked if there was a more senior doctor they could speak to. She was the senior doctor. Nurses who double-checked her orders with male colleagues, as if a woman couldn't possibly know what she was doing. Administrative staff who looked at her ID badge and asked, "Are you really a doctor?" Hospital security who stopped her and asked what she was doing in the doctor's lounge. Her lounge, Tamara had learned to handle these microaggressions with grace, with patience, with professionalism. Because that's what black professionals do. We develop thick skin, learn to smile when we want to scream, learn to educate when we're exhausted from teaching. But what happened on that Tuesday afternoon in March? That was different. That was dangerous. Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, 2:30 p.m., Dr. Tamara Harris had just finished her shift at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. She was off duty, wearing casual clothes, jeans, a comfortable sweater, sneakers. Just a regular person grabbing coffee on a Tuesday afternoon. She walked into the Brewhouse Café on North Michigan Avenue. The place was moderately crowded, people working on laptops, friends chatting, the usual coffee shop scene. Tamara ordered her usual medium latte, extra shot of espresso. She was tired from a long shift and had some paperwork to finish at home. She was standing in line, scrolling through her phone, when she heard it. A gasp. A thud. Tamara's head snapped up. Behind her, a man had collapsed. Collapsed hard, hitting the floor with a sound that made everyone in the cafe stop and stare. He was a white man, probably in his late 50s, wearing a business suit. And he was clutching his chest, his face contorted in pain. Tamara's medical training kicked in instantly. She rushed over, her doctor brain analyzing everything as she moved. Middle-aged male, clutching chest, facial expression indicating severe pain, rapid, shallow breathing, sweating profusely. She knelt beside him. "I'm a doctor," she said loudly to everyone nearby. Her voice was calm, but authoritative. "Someone call 911, now." Checked his pulse. Rapid, irregular, weak. She looked at his face, pale, sweating, lips slightly blue, cyanosis, indicating poor oxygen circulation. She'd seen this exact scenario dozens of times. "Sir, can you hear me?" Tamara asked, leaning close to his face. "My name is Dr. Harris. I'm a cardiologist, a heart doctor. You're having a heart attack. We're getting you help. Can you hear me?" The man's eyes were wide with fear. I tried to speak, but could only make gasping sounds. His breathing was getting worse. This was bad, really bad. A cafe employee rushed over, phone in hand. "Calling 911. Give me the phone," Tamara said, holding out her hand. "I need to give them medical information directly." She took the phone, hit the call button, waited for the connection. 911. What's your emergency? This is Dr. Tamara Harris. I'm a board-certified cardiologist. I have a male patient, approximately 55 to 60 years old, experiencing acute cardiac arrest. He's conscious but in severe respiratory distress. Rapid and irregular pulse, difficulty breathing, severe chest pain, cyanosis around the lips indicating hypoxia. We need an ambulance immediately at the Brewhouse Cafe on North Michigan Avenue, the dispatcher interrupted. "Ma'am, are you qualified to make that assessment?" Tamara froze. For a split second, she thought she must have misheard, because surely a 911 dispatcher wouldn't question a doctor's credentials during a medical emergency. I'm sorry. What are you medically qualified to diagnose cardiac arrest? The dispatcher asked, her tone skeptical. Are you a healthcare professional? The patient's lips were turning bluer. Tamara felt a surge of emotions, belief, anger, fear for her patient. But she forced herself to stay calm. Focus on the patient. Get him help, Tamara said, her voice tight with controlled frustration. I just told you I'm Dr. Tamara Harris. I'm a board-certified cardiologist. I specialize in exactly this kind of emergency. This man is having a heart attack. Please send an ambulance too, ma'am. I need to verify some information first. The dispatcher's voice was maddeningly calm. What hospital are you affiliated with? The patient's breathing was getting shallower. His eyes were starting to roll back. Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Tamara said, her voice rising despite her efforts to stay calm. But that's not relevant right now. This man is dying. Send an ambulance now. I understand your concern, ma'am, but I need to ask appropriate questions too. Severity of the situation, the severity is critical. Tamara nearly shouted. People in the cafe were staring at her now. I am telling you, as a doctor, as a cardiologist, that this patient will die if he doesn't receive emergency treatment in the next few minutes. Send an ambulance to the Brew House Cafe on North Michigan Avenue. Now silence on the line. Precious seconds ticking away. Tick, tick, tick. Finally, dispatching an ambulance now, ma'am. Tamara dropped the phone and turned her full attention back to the patient. He'd lost consciousness. He's not breathing. Someone screamed. Tamara checked for a pulse. Gone. Everyone stepped back. Tamara commanded. Give me space. She positioned herself over the patient, placed her hands in the center of his chest, and started CPR. 30 compressions, hard and fast, making the chest compress at least 2 inches. She tilted his head back, pinched his nose, and gave 2 rescue breaths. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Her arms burned. Sweat dripped down her face. She could hear her own breathing, heavy and labored, but she didn't stop. Come on. Come on, stay with me. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Someone was timing. On their phone, it's been 2 minutes. Tamara didn't respond, just kept going 30 compressions. 2 breaths? Where's the ambulance? How long does it take? 30 compressions? 2 breaths? 3 minutes? Tamara's arms were shaking now. CPR is exhausting, but stopping wasn't an option. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Finally. Sirens, the cafe door burst open. Paramedics rushed in with equipment, defibrillator, oxygen, medical bag. I'm Dr. Harris, cardiologist, Tamara said, not stopping CPR. Patient is a white male, approximately 58 years old. Acute myocardial infarction, went into cardiac arrest approximately 4 minutes ago. Mean performing CPR. He needs immediate transport and intervention. Oh, the paramedics didn't question they took over immediately. Got the patient on the gurney, started advanced life support, attached monitors, got an IV line in. Within 2 minutes, they were wheeling him out to the ambulance. Sirens wailing as they sped toward the hospital. Tamara stood there, breathing hard, her hands shaking from the adrenaline and exertion. The cafe manager approached her, eyes wide. Thank you so much, doctor. You saved his life. Tamara nodded automatically. But her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about those lost minutes on the phone with the dispatcher. Those precious minutes where she'd had to defend her credentials. Instead of just getting the help her patient needed, what if she hadn't been so persistent? What if she'd let the dispatcher keep questioning her? What if the delay had cost this man his life? That evening, Tamara couldn't stop replaying the scene in her mind. The dispatcher's skeptical voice. Are you qualified to make that assessment? She'd been questioned before, countless times, but never in a life or death situation. Never when. Someone was literally dying in front of her. She called her colleague, Dr. Michael Chen. Michael was an Asian-American cardiologist she'd known since residency. They'd bonded over being diverse in a very white, very male field. "Michael, let me ask you something. Have you ever called 911 to report a medical emergency and had the dispatcher question whether you were qualified to make a medical assessment?" "What? No, never. Why would they?" He paused. "Wait, did that happen to you?" Tamara told him everything. The heart attack, the 911 call, the questioning, the delay, the CPR, silence on the other end. "Then, that's insane, Tamara. You're a cardiologist. You literally specialize in this exact situation.
Oh.
Why would they question you?" "I think we both know why," Tamara said quietly. Long pause. "Because you're a black woman," Michael said, his voice heavy. "Yeah, Tamara, you need to report this. This is serious. That dispatcher's bias could have killed someone." Michael was right. This wasn't about hurt feelings or professional disrespect. This was about patient safety the next morning. Tamara filed a formal complaint with the Chicago Office of Emergency Management and Communications. She detailed exactly what happened, how she'd clearly identified herself as a doctor, how she'd provided specific medical terminology, how the dispatcher had questioned her qualifications, how valuable time had been wasted, how the delay could have been fatal. She also called Northwestern Memorial Hospital to check on her patient. He'd survived. His name was Robert Patterson. The emergency department doctors said that the quick intervention, specifically her CPR, had saved his life. If he'd arrived even 5 minutes later, the attending physician told Tamara, he probably wouldn't have made it. 5 minutes. Those lost minutes arguing with the dispatcher had come dangerously close to making the difference between life and death within a week. The 911 system responded to her complaint. They wanted to meet with her. They said they were taking it seriously. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Tamara sat across from 3 people. Deputy Director of Emergency Communications, white man. Probably 50s to dispatch supervisors, 1 white woman. 1 black man. They listened to the recording of her 911 call. Hearing it played back was even more painful than Tamara remembered. She could hear the urgency in her own voice, the professional medical terminology, clear identification as a doctor, and she could hear the dispatcher's skepticism, the unnecessary questions, the delay. When the recording ended, the room was silent. The deputy director spoke first. "Dr. Harris, I want to apologize on behalf of our department. This call was handled inappropriately. The dispatcher should have accepted your professional assessment and dispatched help immediately." "Will there be consequences for the dispatcher?" Tamara asked. "She's been suspended pending a full investigation," he said. Then he leaned forward. "But Dr. Harris, I want to be honest with you. This isn't an isolated incident." Tamara's eyebrows raised. "We've had other complaints," he continued. "Not as severe, but similar. Medical professionals, particularly women, and people of color report having their expertise questioned by dispatchers." "So this is a pattern," Tamara said. "Yes. Then what are you going to do about it?" The deputy director looked at his colleagues, then back at Tamara. "That's what we want to talk to you about. We'd like to implement some changes, but we need your help to do it right." Over the next 3 months, Dr. Tamara Harris became an unexpected advocate for 911. Dispatch reform. She worked with the Emergency Communications Department to develop new protocols. Here's what they implemented: immediate dispatch for medical professionals when someone identifies themselves as a doctor, nurse, paramedic, or other medical professional and provides a medical assessment. Dispatchers must accept that assessment and dispatch help immediately. Questions can come after, not before help is sent. Implicit bias training. All dispatchers would undergo mandatory implicit bias training. The training specifically addressed assumptions about who looks like or sounds like a doctor. The training included scenarios. What if the doctor has a young-sounding voice? What if the doctor is a woman? What if the doctor has an accent? What if the doctor sounds black? None of these things should delay emergency response. Medical professional flagging system. The 911 system would create a database of verified medical professionals. When they call, their phone numbers are flagged in the system, so dispatchers know they're speaking with trained medical personnel. Regular Call review calls where medical professionals' assessments were questioned would be regularly reviewed. Patterns emerged if certain types of medical professionals were questioned more than others. That's a red flag for bias. Partnership with medical comedy dispatchers would receive education directly from doctors about what different medical emergencies look and sound like, helping them better understand and trust medical assessments. But Tamara didn't stop there. She started talking about her experience publicly. She wrote an op-ed for the Chicago Tribune titled, "When a Black Woman Doctor Calls 911. In it, she described the incident and its broader implications. I am a board-certified cardiologist with 12 years of experience. I have saved hundreds of lives. I have degrees from some of the best institutions in the country. But when I called 911 to save a man's life, I was questioned, not because I lacked credentials, not because I lacked knowledge, but because I didn't sound like what the dispatcher expected a doctor to sound like. This bias isn't just insulting, it's dangerous. It delays care. It puts patients at risk. And it highlights a deeper problem in our society. We still struggle to believe that Black women, particularly young-sounding Black women, can be experts in their fields. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of medical professionals, particularly women and people of color, shared their own experiences in the comments. I'm a Black male surgeon. Hospital security stopped me while I was trying to reach a patient. In emergency surgery, they demanded to see my ID 3 times. An Asian American female anesthesiologist. A patient's family asked if I was old enough to be a real doctor. I'm 42 years old. I'm a Latina pediatrician. I've been mistaken for a translator at my own clinic multiple times. I'm a Black female, OB-GYN. A patient asked to see my supervisor during delivery. I was the attending physician. The pattern was undeniable. Medical professionals of color, especially women, faced constant questions about their competence that their white male colleagues never encountered. Tamara was invited to speak at medical conferences, diversity and inclusion summits, 911. Dispatch training programs across the country, medical schools, at a keynote speech at Northwestern's medical school. Tamara told the future doctors, "Some of you in this room will face what I've faced. You will be doubted. Your credentials will be questioned. Patients will ask for someone else. Colleagues will underestimate you." She paused, looking out at the diverse group of students. "And it will hurt. It will make you angry. It will make you want to quit, but here's what I want you to know. You belong here. You earned your place. Your patients need you not despite your background, but because of it. Because diverse doctors provide better care. Because patients need to see doctors who look like them. Because medicine needs perspectives that have been historically excluded." She took a breath. "Don't let anyone make you doubt your competence. And when you face bias, because you will speak up, not just for yourself, but for the patients whose lives may depend on your expertise being respected." The medical students gave her a standing ovation. Several approached her afterward, some with tears in their eyes, sharing stories of bias they'd already experienced in just their first few years of training. And Robert Patterson, the patient whose life Tamara had saved, he'd made a full recovery. And when he learned about what had happened on that 911 call, he was horrified. He reached out to Tamara. They met for coffee at the same café where she'd saved his life. "Dr. Harris," Robert said, his voice emotional, "I owe you my life, but I also owe you an apology." Tamara was confused. "You don't owe me an apology. You were unconscious. You didn't do anything wrong." "Not for that day," Robert said. For being part of a society that made you have to fight to save my life." He paused. "For the bias you faced. I've been thinking a lot about it since then. About how I've probably made assumptions about people based on their race or gender without even realizing it. This was a wake-up call, literally." Tamara smiled. "Well, I'm glad you're awake. I'm glad you're thinking about this." Yeah, that's how change happens. When people start examining their own biases. Dr. Harris's experience highlights several critical issues. The credibility gap in medicine studies have repeatedly shown that Black doctors, especially Black women doctors, face skepticism about their credentials and expertise. Research has found Black physicians are more likely to be addressed by first name rather than doctor. Female physicians report having medical judgments questioned 2x more often than male physicians. Patients are more likely to request a different doctor when assigned a black physician. Hospital staff sometimes mistake black doctors for nurses, technicians, or janitorial staff. This isn't just offensive. It undermines their ability to provide care and can literally endanger patients. When bias becomes deadly. In Dr. Harris's case, bias didn't just hurt feelings. It almost killed someone in cardiac arrest. Every minute without CPR decreases survival chances by 10%. The time wasted questioning her credentials could have been fatal. Those few minutes could have meant the difference between life and death. This shows us that bias isn't just a social issue. It's a safety issue. The burden of proof. Why did the dispatcher question Dr. Harris? But likely wouldn't have questioned a man with a deeper voice, because Dr. Harris didn't match the dispatcher's mental image of what a doctor sounds like. Her voice was female, probably sounded young. And unconsciously, the dispatcher's brain flagged this as doesn't fit the pattern. So Dr. Harris had to provide extra proof. She had to justify her credentials. She had to push harder to be believed. That's the burden that professionals of color carry every single day. Representation matters. Part of why this bias exists is because black doctors, especially black women doctors, are so underrepresented. Only 5% of physicians in the U.S. are black. Only 2 to 3% are black women. When people rarely encounter black doctors in real life or see them represented in media, it becomes harder for their brains to accept black woman and doctor as compatible categories. This is why representation in medicine in all fields is so critical. It's not just about fairness. It's about literally changing people's mental associations so bias has less room to operate. The exhaustion of constant proving. Dr. Harris had spent 13 years in higher education. She'd proven herself thousands of times. She'd earned every credential possible in her field, and she still had to justify herself to a 911 dispatcher. This is what professionals of color talk about when they describe exhaustion, not just physical exhaustion from the work, but emotional exhaustion from constantly having to prove they deserve to be where they are. White doctors don't have to think about whether they'll be believed when they identify themselves, but doctors of color do. That extra mental burden, accumulated over years and decades, is crushing. So what are the lessons from Dr. Harris's experience? Trust credentials, not appearances. When someone tells you their professional credentials, believe them. Don't require extra proof based on how they look or sound. Bias in emergencies can be fatal. This isn't just about feelings or fairness. When bias affects emergency response, people can die. That's why examining and overcoming bias is literally a matter of life and death. Systems need to change. It's not just individuals. Dr. Harris didn't just want that one dispatcher disciplined. She wanted to change the entire system so this couldn't happen to other medical professionals. That's how you create lasting impact. Speaking up matters. Dr. Harris could have stayed silent. She could have been grateful the patient survived and moved on. But by speaking up, by filing a complaint, by sharing her story, she created changes that will help countless future patients and medical professionals. Allies matter. Robert Patterson, the white man whose life was saved, could have just said thanks and moved on with his life instead. He examined his own biases. He became an advocate. He uses his story to help others understand why this matters. That's what allyship looks like. Today, Dr. Tamara Harris continues her work as a cardiologist at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. She's saved countless lives since that day. She's mentored dozens of medical students. And she's become a leading voice in conversations about bias. In healthcare, the Chicago 911 system has fully implemented the reforms she helped design. Other cities have reached out to learn from their model. Dispatch training programs across the country now include specific modules on recognizing and respecting medical professionals. Expertise regardless of what they look like or sound like. The dispatcher who questioned Dr. Harris, she went through extensive retraining. She's back at work now. But she's different. She speaks openly about her mistake and what she learned. She's become an advocate for implicit bias training in emergency services. She tells new dispatchers, "I almost cost someone their life because I questioned a doctor's credentials based on how she sounded. Don't make my mistake." Robert Patterson, the patient Dr. Harris saved, became an advocate too. He speaks at diversity events, sharing his story and emphasizing that bias doesn't just hurt the person experiencing it, can hurt everyone. "Alive because Dr. Harris fought through bias to save my life," he says. "That taught me something crucial. We need to examine our assumptions. Because one day, your life might depend on someone whose expertise you'd be tempted to question." So what can you take from this story? If you work in any field where you evaluate others' credentials, hiring, education, healthcare, emergency services, examine your assumptions. Are you questioning some people more than others based on their race, gender, or age? Be honest with yourself. If you're a professional who faces constant questions about your qualifications, know that the problem isn't you. Earned your credentials. You deserve respect, and you have every right to demand that your expertise be recognized. If you benefit from privilege, if you're rarely questioned, if your credentials are automatically accepted, use that privilege to advocate for others. When you see someone being questioned unfairly, speak up. Your voice might carry weight that theirs doesn't. That's not fair, but it's reality. Use it for good, because here's the fundamental truth. Humanity has no color. Expertise has no color. A doctor is a doctor, regardless of race or gender. But bias sees color. Bias sees gender. Bias sees age. And until we all commit to recognizing and overcoming our biases, qualified professionals will keep having to fight for basic respect, and patients will keep being put at risk. We can do better. We must do better. Lives literally depend on it. Thank you for watching Truly Black and White. If this story moved you, if it shocked you, if it made you think, please share it. These conversations save lives. Subscribe for more stories about dignity, bias, and the work of building a truly equitable society. Leave a comment. Have you ever had your professional expertise questioned because of how you look? How did you handle it? Your stories matter. Your voice matters. Together, we can build a world where every doctor is respected. Every patient gets the care they need, and bias doesn't stand between people and life-saving help. See you in the next video. Have you or someone you know been doubted as a medical professional because of race or gender? Share your experience in the comments. Your story could help someone else feel less alone. Have you witnessed bias in healthcare settings? Tell us what you saw and how you responded. What changes do you think are needed in emergency services? Learn from each other. Share this video with medical professionals you know. Subscribe to the channel. And most importantly, never let bias delay life-saving care.